Delicious. So we traded out the coffee for herbal tea today because we're talking about sleep. And specifically how sleep relates to your fitness, how not getting enough sleep can damage your fitness, and how getting enough sleep can be really good for your long-term progress. And then we're gonna talk about a couple simple strategies that you can implement into your life in order to help you sleep a little bit better, and therefore become a little healthier and happier in the long run. And in case you're new here, my name is Chase and this is Mabel. I'm a personal trainer, she's a freeloading mutt, but believe it or not, she's actually better than me at the bench press, and she's also way better than me at sleeping. Hear that, Mabel? This is your time to shine, buddy. You wanna go sit on your chair, bud? All right, if you wanna place your bets now, we'll check in with her at the end of the video. I reckon she'll be asleep. Sleep has always been the worst part of my own fitness. I've said it in several videos and I'll say it again. I suck at sleep. And that's why one of my big goals for 2021 is actually to get better sleep. I wanna become a better sleeper. So aside from what I've learned from training textbooks and scientific studies, I've been doing a lot of research on my own to help me out. So I figured, why not share the knowledge with y'all? So to break it down, as per usual, I am breaking out the super scientific whiteboard so we can talk about sleep. On the red side here, we have some negative consequences of not getting enough sleep or enough quality sleep. And then on the green side here, we have some simple habits and routines that you can try implementing into your life to get better sleep today. I'll say that I've tried all of these routines out for myself and they've been working wonders for me. Now this isn't everything you need to know about sleep, but this is what I find most important. And if you find anything else important, definitely let me know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, at the top of this whiteboard, we have a quote from the comments in last week's video. This quote is from Hannah Ahmad and it just says, "Walk the talk." I think this is a very important quote to include in today's video because I am seriously trying to walk the talk here. So Hannah, I'm taking your words to heart today because I truly believe that knowledge without action is just a party trick. All of this sleep information will do nothing for you unless you implement some of these habits into your life. And if you have something that you'd like displayed at the top of next week's whiteboard, make sure that you stick around till the end of the video because if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, then you can leave a comment with the secret emoji and your comment might be on next week's board. That's right, dear listener, you could be the next Hannah Ahmad. Just stick around for that emoji, and in the meantime, let's get into it. So this is gonna be a very broad overview of how important sleep is. So just to kind of set the stage here, sleep is one of the big pillars of your fitness. I'd throw it right up there with diet and exercise. And it's not like it's more or less important than diet and exercise, but I'd say that these three things are like the big three pillars that are really gonna propel you towards reaching your fitness goals, whatever they may be. Maybe their performance, maybe their aesthetic, maybe their longevity. No matter what, these pillars play a huge role and they all feed into each other. So anytime that we actually make progress through the gym, through exercise, through training, we are reaching out of our comfort zone and adapting to a new imposed demand. But every adaptation has to come with a dose of recovery. And bedtime is the time when a lot of this recovery occurs. You're never gonna be able to keep adapting to imposed demands and making progress if that recovery phase is not there. When we don't get enough recovery and we don't get enough sleep specifically, we're gonna have decreased force output, we're going to have decreased endurance, we're gonna have decreased glucose metabolism. Yes, this is my goofy drawing of food in turning into energy out. Yeah, glucose metabolism. How do you draw metabolism? Someone else draw me a better metabolism, all right? And we're gonna slow down the repairing of muscle tissue, which if you strength train, anytime you actually push yourself in the gym, you're breaking down muscle fibers and then rebuilding them stronger. And when all of these factors are hindered by a lack of sleep, you're gonna have decreased progress in the long run. So not only is the lack of sleep affecting your performance, it's also gonna be affecting your hormones. See, lack of sleep is linked with decrease in testosterone production, decrease in growth hormone, an increase in cortisol, which is gonna increase your stress response, as well as an increase in ghrelin. And you can think of ghrelin as the hunger hormone, whereas leptin is the satiety hormone. And these two are always in a constant little battle to tell you when you're hungry and when you should stop eating. But when you're low on sleep, that ghrelin response is always gonna be higher, as is your stress response, putting you in a pretty bad place for long-term adherence to nearly any diet. I personally know that when I'm low on sleep, I'm always reaching for the worst food options. And all of this hormone irregularity is gonna play together in a beautiful symphony that results in a much higher increased risk of depression. And let me just get real here for a minute because I actually do track my sleep every night as well as my level of, I guess, optimism towards the world. And though I would never say that I actually have a mental illness like depression, and I would never belittle a mental illness like that, I do notice that when I'm in a sleep rut, when I'm getting bad sleep for multiple days in a row, my outlook on life is severely dampened. It's like there's gray clouds around me all the time. And I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know if my bad sleep is affecting my mood or if my mood is affecting my bad sleep, but regardless, the two are insanely intertwined. When I'm at my lowest in terms of mental health, I'm also at my lowest in terms of sleep health. And this is something that I've just realized in the past couple of weeks, but it's shockingly true. And so, yeah, getting out of that sleep rut can seem like a pretty big deal, but the problem is most people easily turn right away to those simple fixes. You know, you wake up in the morning groggy, so you drink lots of coffee, then in the evening you have some alcohol to wind down. Caffeine and alcohol are going to affect everybody in very different ways, so I'm not gonna make some blanket statement about how much coffee or how much alcohol you should be having or should not be having, but take into consideration that for most folks, caffeine can linger in your bloodstream for up to 12 hours. Now, I know that some of you out there can drink coffee and then go right to bed, but this still might be severely impacting the quality of your sleep. So my best recommendation is to be your own test subject and play around with how late you can have caffeine in the day and still get decent quality sleep. Personally, I don't like to have caffeine after 12 p.m. because I'm pretty sensitive to it. And it's funny because I'm not sensitive to caffeine in a sense that I get super wired. Like, I can have maybe 400 milligrams of caffeine in a pre-workout and I'm fine. I don't freak out. I don't have heart palpitations, but the caffeine lingers with me. It sticks with me for a long period of time. It's in my bloodstream as it is in yours, and it just affects everybody differently. So play around with that caffeine cutoff time and see how much you can handle, see how it impacts your sleep, and see how you feel the next morning. And the other drug that a lot of people need to consider before bed is alcohol. I know a ton of people are out there having that nightcap thinking it's helping them get sleep, when in reality it's helping you fall asleep, but it's not helping you sustain a healthy sleep pattern throughout the night. In short, alcohol is just really going to impair your sleep cycles. You're not going to get that deep sleep that you really need to fully recover. Next time you have a few alcoholic beverages before bed, pay close attention to how you sleep throughout the night. Pay close attention to, do you get up through the night? Do you feel worse the next morning? If you have a significant amount to drink, a lot of folks experience something where once their body metabolizes all the alcohol, they get a big cortisol rush and they wake up and they can't get back to bed. I personally experience this almost every time I drink. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and I'll be super hyped and ready to go and I just can't get back to bed, and I'm like, well, I better start my day hungover now after 4 hours of sleep. Here we freaking go. Luckily, I don't drink that much anymore because I don't like when that happens. Not a net positive for me. Another honorable mention in this drug category is sleep medication, which over-the-counter sleep medication can be a good short-term solution to solve some sleeping issues, but you want to use it like a band-aid. You don't want to become reliant on it. The occasional melatonin, the occasional ZQL is a good band-aid to help you repair a sleep imbalance that's going on in your life, but while you're on the medication, you want to be addressing some other lifestyle factors. You want to look at it like a crutch that's just kind of helping you get back into the rhythm of solid sleep. A lot of this comes down to correcting your circadian rhythm, falling asleep and waking up at the same time every day and getting your body used to that cycle, so short-term implementation of some sleep aids is totally fine in my humble opinion. Granted, just a personal trainer, not an expert, who am I to talk about this stuff? And while we're talking about what you're doing before bed, before we move on to the habits and routines to start implementing into your life, I want to mention one more thing, which is to not drink a ton of water before bed. Now, I just didn't know where else to put this, but I figured I'd mention it here because if you're drinking a lot of water right before bed, you're obviously gonna need to get up and pee throughout the night, and the less you can wake up throughout the night, the better. So stay hydrated throughout the day, but just don't funnel all of your liquids in right before you go to bed. If you're trying to drink a gallon of water a day and you only had a half gallon and it's bedtime, don't chug a half gallon of water before you sleep. Focus on your sleep and dial in that hydration tomorrow. She's not asleep yet. What's up, bud? All right, let's talk about some other things that you can dial in to help ensure you get a good night's rest. Now, the first thing on this list here is gonna be temperature. And I'm talking both about the temperature of the room and the temperature of the screens and lights around you. Now, first, the temperature of the room should actually be quite cool. Humans are very used to waking up and sleeping with the rising and setting of the sun. Therefore, we're used to sleeping in slightly cooler temperatures. And for most folks, this means anywhere below or around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius. Although this might seem a little chilly at first, if the room is this temperature and you get in your bed and let those sheets warm you, it's actually a really great way to get a nice sound sleep. A little hack to this, if you really hate falling asleep in a cooler room, is to have a timed space heater that is on for like an hour and then goes off while you're asleep, and then you don't wake up in a pile of your own sweat in the middle of the night. But then you also want to address the light temperature of the room. So like I said, we learned how to fall asleep with the setting of the sun, but we also learned how to fall asleep while sitting around campfires typically. So humans are pretty okay at falling asleep when lights are dim and warm, preferably below eye level. So in the evening is when you want to shut off the overhead lights and you want to rely more on warm toned lamps, as well as taking your devices and really ramping down the blue light coming out of them. So I know you've probably heard this before, but your cell phones, your laptops, your televisions all emit tons of blue light. And the problem with blue light is that it tells us to get up. It rises cortisol. It says, hey, it's time to take some action. Get out there and seize the day. And this is a great thing to have in the morning. It's great to go out into the sun and experience that blue light and get energized. But right before bed, not the time for blue light. Ideally, you want to stay away from digital screens for like 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. But I know for a lot of people that's just not practical or not something that you want to do, because the evening is a great time to watch Netflix and chill. I mean, seriously. So whether you're working late at night or chilling late at night, you can probably find a way to adjust the temperature of the screens you are looking at. So on my iMac, I like to use programs such as F.LUX and NIGHTOWL to adjust the screen temperature. I'll put links to those in the description below. As well as on Apple devices, I know that there are some features around sleep that are going to help your screen be a little less blue and a little more warm toned. And when worse comes to worse, when you're staring at a television late at night, the best thing you can do is break out a pair of blue light blocking glasses. And if this ain't a fashion statement, I don't know what is. Here you go. You'll see this yellow tint that takes over here that actually blocks out a lot of the blue light in the room. So I like to toss these on in the evening. Really helpful for falling asleep. Very surprising. I thought it was woo-woo at first, but it actually freaking works. But tossing on these blue light blockers can be part of the next step on this list, which is to develop a sleep routine. It seems like 2020 was the year of everybody being concerned with developing the optimal morning routine. It's like in that productivity space, everyone is just obsessing about morning routines, but no one's talking about sleep routines. Your entire morning, heck, your entire day is going to go a lot better if you get adequate sleep. And your sleep is going to be a lot more adequate if you develop a routine to prioritize it. So your sleep routine should be a few calming activities that are easy enough for you to stick to. Maybe it's an evening glass of tea, maybe some meditation or some stretching, or maybe it's seriously just sitting back with your significant other, watching an episode of your favorite show on Netflix, and just relaxing for an hour. If you are doing that, make sure you break out the blue light blocking glasses. But you know, whatever you do, make sure that it's calming, because it's easy to think that an activity such as reading is always calming. But I've personally found myself like reading some books about topics that I really enjoy to dissect, and then I find myself laying awake in bed just thinking about these topics. So no matter what those sleep routine activities are, make sure that they are calming to you. A really helpful thing for offloading these thoughts that are running around in your brain at the end of the day is to jot them down on a to-do list for the next day. I recently read an amazing book by David Allen called Getting Things Done. And in that book, he made a case for the open loops in your mind and how damaging they can be to your long-term health and happiness. And I find it really beneficial to just jot down all the open loops at the end of the day. Maybe it's something you want to buy at the grocery store. Maybe it's an idea about a project you want to start. Maybe it's something you want to do with your fiance next weekend. Maybe it's a phone call you want to make to a friend. No matter what these open loops are, just jot them down, get them out of your head and say, okay, it's on paper, done. And once those open loops in your mind have closed, you want to avoid opening new loops. And what I mean by this is you want to get away from outside stimulus such as cell phones and email and highly stimulating conversations. Most people are going to want to put a lock on this stuff at least an hour before bed. Although you might enjoy rummaging through social media or you might get fulfillment in having an empty inbox, looking at that stuff before bed is going to open up a ton of loops in your mind. There's just so many ideas out there, so many people that need things from you, so many reasons to worry. And I don't know about you, but personally, hitting the bed with a head full of worries has never been good for a good night's sleep. So I take it an extra step and I actually lock myself out of social media and email after 8 p.m. on weeknights. I have people out there that do need things from me and I want to address their concerns as fast as possible, but I have to keep in mind that if I truly want to be my best self, I need to prioritize my own sleep. And in this pursuit of prioritizing my own sleep and turning off my email before bed, I can wake up the next morning and address their concern via email with a better, optimistic, more genuinely helpful approach. And even if you get away from technology in the evening, you still probably want to avoid like really high energy conversations. And I'm not just talking about arguments, I'm talking about anything that gets the gears going. I don't know, for most folks, pillow talk should not consist of religion and politics, but probably something a little more calming. Literally anything. Come up with anything that isn't religion and politics. I know you can do this. Okay, Mabel's back. Mabel's trying to prove me wrong. She's like, hey man, I am not falling asleep for this video on sleep. You got it? All right, bud, I hear you. You can stay up at 5 p.m. You're pretty tough, huh? Yeah. And the last thing here, you want to make sure that you treat your bedroom like the sacred place it is. If you can, don't take your work into the bedroom with you. Leave it outside of the room so that you always have this association that when I'm in my bedroom, I'm only doing one of two things. I'm either sleeping or I'm doing this other activity that starts with an S that I detailed very graphically on the back of this whiteboard. But if you have something to say that you'd like displayed on next week's whiteboard, definitely make sure that you leave a comment below featuring this week's secret emoji, which is, let's not overcomplicate it, let's make it the sleeping guy emoji. So yeah, drop this little sleepy guy in the comments below. We'll be sure to read all of them and respond to as many as we can, and we'll put our favorite one at the top of next week's whiteboard. Just make sure that before you comment, you subscribe to the channel and like this video. And that's all we have for you today. Mabel, I guess I lost the bet. I am really surprised that you stayed awake for an entire video. This video on sleep is like the first video that she didn't sleep through. She's on to me. Heck, bud. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.